Surge or Eclipse? That is the question. Both of them are top mechs and have been that way for a long time, but which one is better? Or at very least, which one should you give first? Now that's a question that I've personally gotten a lot, and I've no doubt that other content creators have the same. The unfortunate and honest answer is that it just depends. So in this video I'm going to be breaking down all of the pros and cons of both mechs, along with Nomad, to help you figure out which one is best for you, depending on your unique situation. Before we can get into the pros and cons, we need to first talk about what makes them so strong. The reason it's hard for me to give a simple answer is the same reason that I've included Nomad in this video, and that is counters. Surge and Eclipse both have abilities that are able to counter almost everything, but they don't all counter the same things. Both have stealth, which makes lock-on weapons pretty useless. Surge has an EMP, which is basically just insta-death, and Eclipse is immune to all effects, making it one of the few things that is able to counter EMP. So basically, on one hand, you have this one mech, Surge, that flies around killing everything, and on the other hand, you have Eclipse that can actually kill the thing that flies around killing everything. And you might think that's all there is to it, like Surge is OP, but Eclipse can kill it, so obviously Eclipse is more OP. But that's where Nomad comes in. See, Nomad is tanky enough to kill Eclipse, but has no protection versus EMP, so it dies easily to Surge, which generally dies to Eclipse, and what you're left with is this hate triangle of legendary scouts that all counter each other in a rock, paper, scissors fashion. At this point you might be thinking, oh great, so I have to get all three of them. And while this is mostly true, you can generally get away with using only one. The one you should go for, though, depends on your situation. So let's go through them. Starting off with Nomad because it is the simplest. In general, for most players, Nomad is not necessary. Even though it's the third fastest mech in the game, super tanky, and is an absolute killing machine, especially in low rank lobbies, it's also fairly easy to counter with other mechs and tends to die much quicker than most other things. That said, it is particularly useful as a starting mech in a control point clash, especially. The dash lets you get beacons quickly, 60% damage reduction lets you make super aggressive plays without necessarily risking your Surge or Eclipse, which are better mechs. Basically, Nomad just acts as an extra Surge, and is primarily only useful if you already have Surge in your hangar. For most players, though, this kamikaze playstyle is better achieved with Deathwalker. If you were to get it, though, Nomad can be used with quite a few weapons, but my top three recommendations would be Revoker, Stormrack, and Ember Gun. Surge is a must-have for any competitive hangar. Dash makes you unreasonably fast, EMP is basically the equivalent of turning off someone's internet for 4 seconds. Surge is specifically good with weapons like Revoker, whose only weakness is range, because the dash can turn a 40-meter gap into a 0-meter gap in less time it takes you to turn around. This is why dash distance implants are so strong, by the way. Pair that with at least 4 seconds of EMP and it's basically GG. Now, Surge also has stealth, 29 kph, which is the fastest base move speed out of anything, and one of the fastest ability cooldowns in the game. So in most cases, it is strong to a degree that probably should be illegal, but whether you get it first is mostly dependent on how often you play tournament, specifically free-for-all. In terms of which weapons work best, you're pretty much looking at the same options as Nomad, and my top three picks are the same, top being Revoker, then Stormrack, and then Ember Gun. Similar to Surge, if you're trying to play competitively and you don't have Eclipse, you're just playing the game wrong. Eclipse doesn't give you free kills like Surge does, but it does keep anyone from being able to stop you, specifically with EMP. And this is very important in small spaces like 2v2 maps, or where there's a ton of random enemies and effects flying around like free-for-all. The fact that it isn't affected by EMP specifically is super useful, but don't confuse that as being a counter to EMP. In the case of Eclipse versus Surge, technically neither ability gives an advantage over the other. Since both mechs have the same base HP, it really just depends on which one's higher level, has better mods, or has taken less damage before they ran into each other. This makes Eclipse specifically useful in a free-for-all setting. Where surges are hindered by random bastions and zephyrs and other surges, the Eclipse can walk around like nothing's happening and take advantage of all of these enemies that are stuck due to all of these effects or weakened. Now, it's not to say Eclipse isn't good in other modes, but I don't think it's worth getting first unless it's to win free-for-all tournaments. In other modes, the best way to get an advantage over Surge would be to use slightly more ranged weapons and not taking that 50-50 coin flip by trying to brawl with it head-to-head. Because again, Eclipse doesn't counter Surge, it just keeps Surge from gaining an advantage. Now, the one final question you might be asking is, well, what if I play both 5v5 and free-for-all tournaments? Well, in that case, you have one mech, Surge, that's going to be very, very good in 5v5, and then Eclipse that's going to be pretty good, but probably not as good, right? So if you only play 5v5, I'd go for Surge. But if you play them about 50-50, then you'll also be using Eclipse in free-for-all, be your main mech there, and then Surge will do still pretty good. But in general, I would say that compared to Surge in 5v5, Eclipse probably does better than Surge in free-for-all. So if you play them both about equally, then I probably would lean toward Eclipse. That's just personal choice, though everyone's free to make their own decisions. In terms of weapons, Eclipse is by far the most versatile of the three, probably the most versatile mech in the entire game. My top 3 picks would be Revoker, Minigun, and Stormrack, but simply due to the nature of the ability, it really suffers no direct downside from anything. It doesn't require getting close to enemies in order to make full effect of the ability. It's simply a buff to itself, so it can be used with mid-range beam weapons. It could be used with passive guided weapons. It could be used with close quarters, and really everything in between. And so maybe if you don't really have any great weapons to be able to put on any of these mechs, it might be a good idea to just go with Eclipse because it'll make the best use out of any random weapon that you might have, though I find that situation rather unlikely considering most people by now have probably already bought, at very least, the Revoker 6 and 10, which is really all you need to get started with any of these 3 mechs. That's everything you should need to know in order to choose which mech is best for you. So just to recap, Nomad can generally be skipped, especially if you have Deathwalker. Eclipse is the best choice for tournaments, specifically free-for-all, and Surge is the best choice for everything else. If you found this video helpful, then give it a like. If you didn't, then let me know which mechs I should talk about instead. Otherwise, that will be it for me. Appreciate y'all. Take care.